everyone, welcome to the first episode of New Comic Book Late Night. I'm Captain Logan, and joining me is the Curious Lo.
Hello!
And Lo and I are finally getting back into new comics. It's exciting. First of all, Comic Book Late Night was a thing that we did. I say we, it was me at first, and then I brought on a co-host. I had Tim Lyons for a while. We had Gloria the Dinosaur. I miss Gloria the Dinosaur. I used to get to work with a dinosaur. I missed that. And we did kind of this catch-all late-night talk show thing where we were talking about like pop culture news at large, but mostly comic book stuff. And then I wasn't reviewing comics on that show after the first few once it went live because we tried to make it this fun late-night talk show thing. And that kind of went the way of the dinosaurs, and now I've done like a bazillion different versions of new comic reviews. And Lo and I thought it would be really cool since she and I are the only two people that are reading regularly with new single issues. We've got a lot of guys that do trade and wait for things. That it might be cool to bring back Comic Book Late Night, but do it as a comic review and recommend show. And that's what it's going to be for the foreseeable future, and we'll see what folks think of this. If you're joining us live, thanks a lot for being here late at night on a Monday, and this is the earliest you're going to see this show for a while. We decided to start at midnight Central tonight because Lo is around and able to do it this early. But starting next week, Lo is going to be working late, and so she's going to have to start this at a whopping 2 a.m. my time, is when this will be the next few weeks after this. So if you're overseas and this is a normal time for you, that's great for you. You'll be able to join us while I look completely incoherent. And but for the rest of you that like to stay up late and stuff, we'll be here at 2 a.m. And so expect fluctuating times. That's likely to move again once the schedules get different. But anyway, Lo, thank you so much for joining me on this crazy new comic show.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I'm excited. We've already talked about this between the two of us, and I sort of mentioned it last night on the kind of announcements video, but I'm excited for our dynamic because Cap, as I'm sure most of you are aware, is a bit of a veteran when it comes to comics, and I am still not even at a year since I started regularly reading comics, so I'm excited to learn a lot from Logan, and I'm sure there are some of you out there that maybe have questions that maybe you have felt like were stupid or everyone should know this, and now I can be that guinea pig that asks all the questions that maybe everybody should know, but since I'm a newbie, I don't know that everyone should know them. It's going to be great. So I'll get to learn a lot of stuff, and hopefully some of you guys will as well.
I'm excited at coming at it from that lens because usually, weirdly, I have been the guy on the other side that's like kind of a comics veteran, but I'm working with somebody that knows way the heck more than I do. It seems like I'm always working with, so it's kind of fun to get to be in that seat of kind of being the comic scholar on this show, or the closest thing that we're gonna get right now since you and I are actually reading week to week. So anyway. We're going to keep this generally to about half an hour. Today is likely to be slightly longer because of this drawn-out preamble. So let me give you the breakdown of what the show is going to be like. We're going to give you 3 issues that we recommend and liked a lot from last week. Brief reviews, but mostly just recommendations. And then we'll tell you a little bit about some other books that we read the previous week. Just kind of go down some polls, and those won't be long at all. They won't be reviews. We'll just be like, and I read this, and no, that's bad. And then, and we'll also give you our favorite cover from last week. Lo, people love cover of the week. I've had weeks where I've forgotten to do cover of the week, and people are like, hey, you're supposed to tell us which one you like. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to give you, and this is why we're doing this on Monday, I guess Tuesday morning, shortly before the new comics come out on Wednesday. We're going to be talking about the 3 books that we're most anticipating for this week. While Lo and I are discussing and it'll be fun to see if we're reading into the same things, Lo, much less if any of them lined up on the same list. But
it'll be really interesting if I like recommend something and you're like, oh, I got that and I hated it.
Yeah, exactly. Because Lo and I have very different opinions on things a lot of the time. We come from very different places and backgrounds, and all you need to know is that Lo is about to be the host of Fantasy Rewind, and I'm the host of Science Fiction Rewind, and that tells you everything you need to know. So anyway, I read, of course, lots of superhero books, lots of mainstream stuff. Lo does some of that, but also a lot of other things that some of us probably won't even have heard of. So that's going to be really exciting. Right now, I want to mention that during the show, up until we get to our second part of the show. And at the end, we'll open up for questions about anything that we did, about books that we're not talking about that you might be curious about, or stuff you might want to recommend to us too. Grab that. We'd like to see you review it. What I'd like you to do is maybe, and feel free to do some research if you want to, find out what is coming out this week that you think that Lo or I are likely to review, because the first person that, and I'm checking the comments, we don't have a Rasco on the show. I'm going to be looking at comments, and the first person that I see who posts, who writes down in the comments, we're doing comments on the normal YouTube page, that writes down a book that Lo or I have are going to be, and Lo, you be looking too, because I actually don't know what your books are for your anticipated books.
I've got it up. I've got the chat.
Thank you. Obviously, I've really thought this out. The first person to write down a book that one of us has on our anticipated books is going to get a free digital copy of one of the books that I'm reviewing this week, and we'll do that every week. So be thinking about it, and feel free to write them down at any time. We'll be paying attention. There are quite a few people in the chat, so thanks a bunch for being here. And we'll not really be answering a lot of questions during the show, although we'll be glancing at this occasionally, so we might see something we want to respond to. Lo, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's get started. Would you like to begin this week?
Sure. Why not? Let the guinea
for the first time on Geekvolution, the Curious Lo reviews a comic book.
For the first time in the history of forever, the Curious Lo reviews a comic book. I have never done this before, so all right. So my third favorite from last week is going to be Daredevil number 5. Did you hear that slip up? I called it Daredevil. Daredevil number 5.
You said it like Jason did when he was 3.
Daredevil. I really liked this issue. Ooh, I'm getting some nice glare on that. Shiny. First of all, I just really like the art in this series, and I've never read any Daredevil before this specific run, so I don't know how this compares to other books, but I've really grown attached to Blind Spot, and in this week's issue, I really liked the fact that he was using social media to reach out to Daredevil. I thought that was super clever. I like kind of continuing his story overall. The art in this book always just really impresses me. I'm not reading anything else that looks exactly like it. So I don't know. I quite enjoyed it. It was nothing necessarily spectacular. I just am always enjoying Daredevil. And also with the new season that just came out, it's relevant and all that fun stuff. So yeah, that was my number 3. I quite liked it.
Very, very cool. That would have been my 4th or 5th. I have that sitting here as well. Yeah. So that's cool. We're both reading that. Yeah, I can't tell you how extremely happy I am that we have a follow-up book to the absolutely brilliant Mark Waid run that ran for, 3-4 years, and started over. That is good. I don't know how to compare them right now. I don't want to say that it's as good as Wade's, but I would have expected an awful follow-up, and we didn't get that at all. And going back to gritty street level, kind of Miller days Daredevil, and not feeling like it's too much retread of that stuff. The Tin Fingers guy is terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, and without really being like stereotypically terrifying, I guess. Like, I don't know, he reminds me a lot of Fisk in that he's a little bit more like imposing than like I don't know, physically terrifying to me. Maybe that's just me. I love all the fight choreography and stuff in this. I think that they do a really good job of drawing it. I'm just like flipping through it, but
yeah, it's wonderfully stylistic, and it immediately has its own distinct vibe, which again is difficult to pull off when you do Daredevil and when you do Dark Daredevil, and especially when you have a TV show on that has that Bendis and Miller vibe. So, but anyway, that's super cool. I didn't even know you were reading that.
Yeah, I'm reading lots of Marvel. I need to get into more DC. So if anybody has DC books that they think are good, put them in the chat. I will certainly start checking more out.
And remember, with Rebirth, it's about to be the time to jump on.
I know. I know.
It's about to be the time.
There's too many for me to choose at this point. I know I'm going to do Wonder Woman, though, because I'm really interested in reading her. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah, there's going to be no way that I don't read that book. Especially because the Greg Rucka's whole idea of let's make all this convoluted history for Wonder Woman all this time. The stuff that doesn't make sense, we'll say that people were lying. I love that. That's the most fun way to retcon a thing. I don't know what exactly that'll be like, but yeah. So I should mention that Lo and I are both, even though Lo only had one book last week, apparently, picking stuff from the last 2 weeks. I have mine all mixed from the last 2 weeks because I picked everything up at once. So I don't even know which was last week and which was the week before. That's how behind I am. My number 3, Lo, is X-Men number 92, number 1. See, there's going to be a lot of slip-ups and Freudian slips and stuff doing this late at night. Because I gotta tell you, I've been busy and I didn't get a lot of sleep last night, and I am exhausted right now.
And I just feel the need to remind everyone once again that I am on pain meds that make me a little bit loopy. So
you're only what, like,
devil on that.
You're not even 72 hours out of surgery, probably.
It was Friday at 5 is when I got out of surgery, so it's been a couple days.
So anyway, X-Men 92, number 1. This is by Chris Sims and Chad Bowers. We have a dual writing team with art by Alti Firmansaya. I'm probably pronouncing that incorrectly. This is a lot of fun. I'm excited. This is a monthly now. A great alternative if you're a classic X-Men fan, especially if, like a lot of people my age, you were introduced to X-Men through the X-Men TV show, because that's what this is basically. It's super bright and colorful. It has the costumes you remember from when you were a kid watching that show. It's a lot of those characters, but there is, like there always was with the soap opera of X-Men, an ongoing continuity. So characters have left, other characters have come in. Bishop is a regular team member now. That's kind of new. You notice with the cover of this issue, and I'll just tell you right now, this is my cover, my favorite cover from last week, from this week. This is very similar, of course, to the bit at the end of the intro of that show where you have the heroes and the villains all coming at each other and about to attack, and they kind of parody that and mimic it a little bit in the Powerpuff Girls intro. Not the new one, but the original Powerpuff Girls intro. And anyway, so what we have going on here is more convoluted history from Wolverine's past, and we are making fun of the fact that we're constantly doing that in this all over this issue, and that absolutely cracks me up. We're dealing with Omega Red and Russian stuff, and there's a super soldier from an old Russian program that was supposed to be kind of the Russian Captain America, but they didn't have super soldier syndrome. It's gonna be like this serum. So there was this like monster mutant guy that they merged with some kind of drug and kind of makeshift did a super soldier, and he's a crazy scary monster thing. So it's kind of like evil, scary, like Hulkish Omega Red, and it's a good setup for all the strange Russian stuff moving forward, and it's got a lot of that really silly kind of cliche banter that you had in that show. It's often not good writing because it's the kind of writing you had in that show, and it's very authentic, and it's there's a whole lot of kind of racial stereotyping, but in as loving a way as you can possibly do that. And it's hilarious. It knows what it is. It's a 90s book, and as I said, it is a really good alternative if you're not digging current current X-Men. I don't know if current X-Men is very good. If anybody's reading any of Bun's stuff or Hopeless, any of that stuff, let me know if it's good or if it is hopeless, because I'm not real, I haven't been real keen on the Inhuman stuff, but I don't know if that's permeating every book, and I dropped off of it after Bendis. So I'm not saying that like X-Men sucks right now, read this book. I am saying that I'm not reading regular X-Men right now, and it's fun to get a little bit of my X-Men fix with this absolute nostalgia fest. And this also piggybacks off of, it's a direct sequel to the Secret Wars X-Men 92, and it does a good job of keeping all that continuity together. And I like that it's not X-Men 92 in the regular 616 universe, but we're still in that universe just like we are with Spider-Gwen. So so we do have some multiple Marvel universes going on right now, and there's a lot of variety to be had if you're not in love with the Secret Wars reboot. And by the way, I have to take all of the credit for the fact that Lo is wearing that.
Yeah, he's the one that sent me it. But Spider-Gwen is one of my favorite books right now, so I was all about it. When you mentioned her, I was very excited. Okay.
Me too. I like that book a lot. Yeah. I need to go back and get the first volume, which was only, I think, 6 issues before it started over.
Before it rebooted at one or restarted. I don't know if it actually rebooted.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, like you could say rebooted for the numbering. Yeah, the numbers rebooted. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your number 2 from last week?
So my number 2 is actually a trade paperback, and I don't know if that's breaking the rules, but hey, it's what I really liked from last week. It is the trade paperback for Paper Girls. I was really enjoying this book, and for some reason never read the last issue when I got it. It's sitting in my box back there, but I never read it, so I didn't realize that this was a volume 1. I thought that it was a short series because I'm still new to comics and don't know how to look up like when stuff is ending and beginning. Still new to all that. But yeah, I really love this book, and the first little story arc here kind of ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, but I'm excited to see where it goes. It's got time travel, it takes place in the 80s, and it's got space travel and a bunch of awesome teenage, preteen girls that have paper routes, and it's just brilliant, and I love it. It's quirky. There is swearing in it, but kind of the type of swearing that you see in, like, I don't know, Super 8, where it's like kids thinking that they're cool because they're swearing sort of stuff, which I don't know, I always really enjoy. I like kids being kids. And I think this book does a really good job of that. The artwork in this is just spectacular. Bright neon colors all the way through. I mean, you can flip to any page and it's just gorgeous and a different color on each page. I really enjoyed it. I like all 4 of the main girls. I think they're great, and the cliffhanger at the end was very fun, and I'm excited to see where all of this time travelness goes.
What Lo is saying is that she likes profane children in comic books. That's
basically. No, I'm just saying that, like, I like when kids are allowed to be kids. And I know even me, who is someone who, while if you follow me on Twitter, I swear a lot in text, especially as a child, I did not swear, and talking out loud, I don't really swear. I still, when you like are a kid and you can sneak in that one little S-bomb just because you're cool with your friends, like, it's that whole my dad works for Nintendo thing. Like, kids always want to seem really cool to each other, and, saying swear words, and I don't know. I really bought it. I loved Paper Girls. I thought it was a really great book, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
I love that. I want to steal that from you. That's absolutely what it is. My dad works at Nintendo. I love that. Yeah, I need to finish Paper Girls. I'm still a couple issues behind on that, and importantly, it's coming back. We're gonna have more of that. That book, I fell in love with the first issue because I mean, the premise is fascinating, and that cliffhanger at the end of the first issue is one of the most memorable cliffhangers I've read in a book in a very long time. As soon as you see that, I don't want to give it away for anybody since you're reviewing the trade. I got to that, I was like, that's what we're doing. Okay, that's really cool. And he thinks about time travel in a way nobody thinks about time travel. But it got me really hard because it felt like the most authentic late 80s I've read in a 80s period piece or scene or anything. I mean, like, I was a little kid, but I was there, and it reads like that. I mean, like, anyway, it's, yeah.
And that cliffhanger was so clever too, because it's like, it reveals something about the nature of the story that I've already revealed in my review that you don't realize is the case until you get to that point. I don't know. It's a very interesting way to introduce something like that.
Well, I've never told anybody this, but I should mention this. One of the reasons that book grabbed me so hard too, on a personal level, is around that time, and especially like 91, I think. My parents, as a second extra bring in some money thing, tag teamed and threw newspapers.
Oh wow.
When I was a kid, they'd go out in the middle of the night and throw newspapers, and I went with them a couple times, and I have really fond memories of that. That's one of my earliest memories is doing that. I said 91. It was probably even earlier than that. All right, my number 2 for last week is the one-shot Ninja Turtles Deviations. We also had an issue of a regular issue of Ninja Turtles last week, 56, which was really good. But I wanted to pick this one because I haven't so far been in love with these one-shot deviation things, and this one is the best of them so far. It ain't perfect, and it can't be because it's one issue and there's not enough space. IDW has had this problem a lot, and they've gotten away from it a lot in recent years because we have monthlies there now, which is nice. They used to do these Star Trek minis that had that would have a great premise, but 2 issues, you couldn't get anything done. So you get to the end of the issue and it's super truncated. At the end of the second issue, and you'd be like, this needed to be 4 or 6 issues. So anyway, what these deviations things do is it's basically a what if story. It's actually exactly what if was, except it's, well, actually, a lot of what if was 1 issue too. So I mean, like, I guess it's kind of getting away with that. Now that I'm thinking about it, if you look at this as what if, it's a lot better. But anyway, what this does is it takes a point in the story of one of these properties that IDW has in their comic run, and it takes 1 issue and goes some other direction with it. The Ghostbusters one had, well, actually, it wasn't about the comic run. The Ghostbusters one had the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man not getting defeated and just still sticking around and walking around, and what do we do about that? And it was fun, but ultimately the way it paid off at the end, the resolution wasn't great, wasn't as clever as it wanted to be. Tom Waltz is actually writing this one, which I think helps a lot, because he's basically going back to City Fall and saying, what if City Fall happened entirely differently? So instead of Leonardo becoming the tune-in for Shredder, and the Shredder brainwashing just Leonardo, he actually brainwashes all 4 of them, and it starts after basically the big impetus. And I love this with these kinds of what if stories where it's like spinning off another universe where a hugely different event makes things go in an entirely different way. We're playing with butterfly effect, and this one is Casey Jones dies, what happens? And that ends up leading to the 4 turtles all getting brainwashed. And without giving anything away, one of the things that's kind of a letdown, and sort of was with City Fall 2, is just this would all be so much more interesting if it wasn't just a straight up brainwash, and somehow or rather Shredder actually somehow made the turtles think that they should work with him and was actually manipulating them in some way. But then you need a lot of space to make that work, and it would be really hard to keep your character sympathetic. And I feel like you need to be in that status quo for about 3 years to make it work. So maybe you can't really do that. But the artwork is gorgeous. This is and it's super gritty, and I mean, I don't like it as well as Santa Luco, but if Santa Luco isn't on this book all the time, I want it to be this guy. What is his first name? This is Howard, but I can never remember this person's first name. I can't find it right off. Anyway, the end of this has a letter from Tom Waltz talking about how City Fall started in the first place, and I didn't know about this. It apparently came from this notion that they decided to abandon. That was, what if Leonardo was Shredder's son instead of Splinter's son? And that made me think, oh, I wish we'd been able to do that with this, or do some miniseries that does that. But then you couldn't really make that a deviation because that would have had to have been true the whole time. So anyway, yeah, this is a good one shot. It's easy to pick up if you've read any of this stuff. If you read City Fall, especially, even if you haven't continued reading, it's fun to see what for Tom Waltz might have happened if it was all four of them instead of just the one. What's your number 2, Lo?
That was my number 2. This is going to be my number 1.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, go ahead. I'm used to going first.
I know. I have to say I'm really interested in one-shots like that. I don't know how embarrassing this is amongst geeky people, but like I am very interested in fan fiction in general. I love when people do like alternate universe stuff and like create kind of what ifs. So that sort of stuff is very interesting to me. I've always been really into like alternate universe fanfics, but I digress. So my number 1 this week was the new issue of The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Get it out. I guess I should get these out of their bag. I'll learn for next week. And I actually got, and this is my favorite cover, just since you already said yours, I got a variant cover, the Women of Power variant cover, which is gorgeous. I quite liked it. But this week we saw Squirrel Girl teaming up with Howard the Duck, and there were some cameos by Rocket Raccoon and Beast. And yeah, it was great. The main villain is a cosplayer, which I think is just amazing. I tend to like very quirky characters, and Squirrel Girl is certainly one of them. And I also think that this is just a fun book to recommend if you're a fan of Deadpool, because this book can get very meta. On the bottom of the pages, there's like always commentary by, sometimes it's the author being meta about what he's writing, little footnotes. Sometimes, like this time, Howard the Duck was like arguing with the author about stuff that he was saying about Howard and like, you know, being like, that's not true, what are you saying? I don't know, it's a very quirky book. It was very fun. We got to see, what is his face? Craven the Hunter. Made an appearance as well. It's just, I mean, Squirrel Girl has a history of teaming up with people, so that's no surprise. And we've seen Craven the Hunter in her book before. But yeah, it was just a really fun romp. There's, yeah. They're old pals. I
need to be reading that book. The couple of times I've checked in on it, I've loved it, but I just haven't committed to it.
Oh, it's a great, I love it. I really love just like quirky, fun girls, obviously with paper girls in this. Yeah, it's I keep saying it's a really fun book. That's like the highest praise I can give it. It's just a fun read. What they were doing this time was Howard has been hired to track down a cat, like a lost cat for someone, and he happens to run into Squirrel Girl because he accidentally steals her cat, thinking that it's the lost cat that he's looking for, and that's what sets these events into motion. But yeah, it was very fun, and it is a 2-parter. It's clearing up in next week's Howard the Duck. So I don't read Howard the Duck, but I'll definitely be picking up that issue so that I can get to the second half of the story, see what happens between the two of them. So that was my number 1, as well as my favorite cover.
See, that's how they get you, Lo.
I know, right?
Those crossover stories. But at least that one wasn't like 6 across.
True. It's just the one.
My number 1, this is maybe like the really obvious thing to do, but it was part of it's just artwork, really getting to see Capullo come back on this, but it's Batman number 50, and this is the end of Super Heavy. It's crazy, really, that I'm putting this at the front of my favorite books from the last 2 weeks, because I was not in love with Super Heavy right away. And I'm not in love with it at the end either, but I like it a lot more than I realized while I was reading it. But this is about as over the top as Snyder has ever gotten. I gotta throw that out there. He gets so literal with stuff in this. Basically Batman literally becomes an element. I'm not even making this up. Like there is
air, fire, like an element?
No, like the periodic table.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I come from a fantasy background. I immediately go Avatar. Continue.
Because what you said would have been less strange than what he did. There's a couple issues back, there's a giant physical like a periodic table that you can walk on and light up, and there's these other elements that are like being created by putting different things together, and one of them is called Batmanium. Not even kidding.
Of course, of course.
And we're playing with the idea of Batman as an elemental idea in the most literal way humanly possible. But it's fascinating, and I don't want to immediately write it off because of the kookiness of it, because Snyder is doing this balancing act through, I think, his whole run, where he gets to these kooky places and finds a way to make it also really horrifying and creepy and disturbing. And he does that with his villain Bloom here, who, of course, is finally thwarted in this last issue of this arc. We've got I don't know how to talk about this without giving stuff away, but basically, look at the cover. We've got real Batman coming back already. And I don't know how long people really expected Bruce Wayne to not only not be Batman, but not even be himself, this version of Bruce Wayne that lost all of his Batmanness. And in the previous issue to this has already regained his Batmanness. There's gonna be there's not a lot I want to say about this until I get it all together and reread it again, and then maybe eventually do a full-blown review on it. But this is a $5.99 issue. It's bulky, and there's a lot going on in this. My biggest criticism, of course, is it has a lot of Snyder, is he gets a little bit by the end to a explainy about his ideas. He's gotta really put everything up front and get to a place where I can't decide how much story we're telling over telling us what the story is about. And he has been dissecting and deconstructing Batman in all of these different ways through his whole run. The ideas are absolutely fascinating, but I kind of get taken out of the story with them. What he's really getting at by the end of this is kind of against the Nolan idea that Batman can be anyone, and is more this notion that Batman fights to try to make people realize that they don't want to be him, to try to prevent Batman from needing to be necessary. And this idea that he and the Joker, and coming off of Endgame, which I really appreciate this idea after that, that he and the Joker are both these larger than life ideas, that there isn't anybody else that is like that, and that this bad guy Bloom, even though he seems like this larger than life scary creature, is actually what anybody could become if they let the city of Gotham kind of swallow them whole. Really cool ideas, very spelled out at the end, but certainly made me think like Snyder always does. And like I said, I just love Capullo. This is my this would have been maybe my other, I almost picked this cover over the one I picked because it's Capullo doing kind of his Spawn days with Batman, and I love that. Every time he reminds me of his Spawn in a book that makes sense and I know what's going on, I get really excited. So anyway, that's my number one from last week.
Woo. All right, shall I just do my other two books that I got this week real quick?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, run them down.
All right. So I also got Justice League of America #8, the Brian Hitch book, which I've quite been enjoying. It's not necessarily standing out for me, but I'm interested in it. I've been sort of using it as an intro to DC characters, because while I know who maybe like Batman and Superman are, unlike with Marvel, who has had a lot of movies that I have, I don't know, consumed as a consumer, I don't really know a lot about a lot of the other Justice League characters, and I didn't want to jump into a bunch of books and be kind of confused. So I really liked this. It's been very fun, and this is also another gorgeous cover. I almost chose this as my cover. I really like the cover art. It's just all red. It's kind of glary. Of course,
who is that? Do you know?
Let's see here. The artist is, it's here. Oh. This just shows how well I know how to read cover art.
Totally
by Brian,
cool, no problem.
By Brian Hitch and Alex Sinclair. So it looks like both the writer and one of the, because is Sinclair doing something else on the book? Yeah, he's the colors. So he's already doing the artwork inside as well.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And then the other book that I had this week was the kind of mini arc Amazing Grace from The Amazing Spider-Man, which is 1.4. which I quite enjoyed as well. And I'm reading a lot of Spider-Verse books. Not all of them, but most of them. I really like Spider-Man. Ta-da!
Yeah, Lo's reading a lot more Spider-Man stuff than I am right now, and I've got at least 3, which tells you how many she's got to be reading.
I'm reading more Spider-Man stuff than Dan, and I think that's crazy.
Well, Dan's not reading
anything
at all right now, so yeah, that's not hard. Okay, so other stuff I got last time, like I said, Ninja Turtles number 56. We're introducing Leatherhead, who is being handled in a way different way than I've ever seen. There's a very intellectual Leatherhead. That's really interesting. We're going back to the Technodrome. That's exciting. And there's some really cool kind of ethical questions about what to do with the Utroms that I really love. We've got all these dormant Utroms that are kind of innocent and haven't done anything wrong, but we think of them all as kind of evil, and we vilify them because they're Utroms, and that's what Krang is. And what do we do with them? They're all in stasis. I love that we're constantly dealing with that kind of morality in Ninja Turtles. And then Back to the Future number 6, finally getting into an ongoing story arc with this, and sort of doing Back to the Future 4, although I'm sure Bob Gale would hate it if people were to say that. The idea with this initially was that it was just going to fill in stuff in the continuity, and it did that for 5 issues, and then it got popular, and they decided to keep going with it. So they kind of went against what they said in the first place and said, "Yeah, okay, fine. I guess we'll do a time travel story." And or at least I'm assuming this is going to become a time travel story. So you've got Marty, who feels like his most exciting days are behind him because he used to travel through time, and now he doesn't get to do that anymore, and he's kind of sitting around bored and feeling like there's nothing left for him. And then he gets another letter from the past, just like he did at the end of Back to the Future 2, saying that Doc Brown needs his help, and so he has to go try to find him. And then Lois and Clark number 6 was as good as this book has been. Like I said, I'm still not a huge fan of Jurgen's dialogue, but the plot is thickening with Lois and Clark's son and his figuring out that his dad is Superman, and we were building up toward what the very exciting. I think it's Action Comics that Jurgens is writing. Tell me if I'm wrong about that, because the announcements just came out, and my head is spinning with all of those titles and names. But we're getting closer and closer, of course, to the status quo that's going to be with that when we have 2 Supermen, and they're both Clark Kent. What do we do? And I'm really excited about that. Venom Space number 5 was okay. I don't know what to do with this book yet. It basically feels like a Guardians book that's just Venom, and it's quirky, but it's also sometimes a little bit strange and disturbing, and it's starting to get a little bit more dramatic, and we're starting to get back to Flash Thompson's actual characterization and where he comes from, and his temper and stuff, and so that's good. Carnage number 6, I'm still not in love with this book, but it's better than it has been. That's Jerry Conway, who I was really excited to doing this book, but Carnage and Prophecy doesn't mix. It just doesn't. And we have now basically a completely invincible Carnage that nothing can stop him, and he's just kind of harassing people on boats right now. So we'll see what happens with that. And I'm not going to say much about Obi-Wan and Anakin, except that this thing is dripping with atmosphere, and I really, really like it. I don't know if you're reading this, Lo, but
I'm not. I read Princess Leia and Chewbacca, but I haven't been reading any of the other Star Wars books.
All this does continually is make me hate the prequels even more because and I mean, people hate it when I say that, but it's just how I feel about it. Because all of the corruption, the potential corruption in the Jedi Order and stuff is dealt with and talked about, and we're thinking about all that stuff, and more Anakin going where he goes, it seems like a thing that might make complete sense were this thing,
nice.
In actually informing it. So yeah, it's great. What was your favorite cover from last week? Did you pick one?
Yeah, it was the Squirrel Girl cover.
Oh, that's right.
I got a variant cover. It was a Woman of Power variant cover for Squirrel Girl, and it's got her showing off her awesome tail, like her actual tail, not her butt, but I could see how that could be confusing.
So, it looks like, correct me if I'm wrong, if I missed one before, but it looks like Soundwave, unless somebody called one of your books, Lo, is going to get the digital comic this week. And the digital comic this week that I'm giving away is for X-Men 92. So you can read this book if you haven't read this, Soundwave, and I will send you that when this is over. But anyway, I guess I'll go ahead, Lo, and mention.
I think we might have the same number 3 then for our recommends, because I know that he got my number 3.
Oh, all right. Well, I guess I'll start then. Is your number 3 Black Panther number 1?
It is, yes.
Cool. Okay. Well, I also picked Black Panther number 1. I am fascinated to read Ta-Nehisi Coates doing a comic book. That is crazy. I'm fascinated that that's even a thing that's happening. We've been seeing so much of people in comics coming in that haven't really written for comics before, that are good writers or in that vein somehow, coming in and writing what they know. You know, we had a comedian do Daredevil, or Deadpool, excuse me, and now we've got this. Ta-Nehisi Coates is a social and political writer. He's a journalist. He's really critically acclaimed in the nonfiction world. He writes a lot about African American issues, and he's kind of a social activist. And I've listened to him talk. He's fascinating. He's one of the, whether you agree with stuff he says or not, he seems to be one of the most well-read and most informed people right now. And for him to be doing Black Panther and dealing with the kind of larger global issues in Marvel is a really interesting thing to see. I hope he doesn't get super preachy with it, but I think he'll be more nuanced with that, and I'm very interested in it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, just hammering home that I am new to comics. I don't have as much of that behind why I'm interested in it. I'm not familiar with the character. I know he's going to be part of Civil War, and I'd like to get to know him a little bit before Civil War. So obviously the whole please movie people read our comics thing is working on me. So, but
all right, fair enough.
He seems like a kind of interesting character for what I know of him, which is very little, but seems interesting. That's basically what I've got.
Well, see, this is a case where I don't mind it as much as long as they're not basically telling the story that we'll get in the Black Panther movie.
True.
Getting people more familiar with that character in comics is smart, because what I'm always saying with Marvel and the movie thing is, you've already got us. We're going to go see the movies, but you might want to drum up interest in a character that is not as well known, that even some comics readers, I mean, they're probably going to go to that movie, but they'll talk it up some. Mm-hmm. And that was smart with Guardians, and I think it's smart here too. I've never been a big Black Panther guy. I don't have anything against the character. It's just never been a thing that's really grabbed me. But I'm fascinated by that writer, and that's my big thing with it.
Yeah, I didn't know that about the writer. I'm excited for that. It'll be cool.
My number 2 is and I've already reviewed the first 2 issues of this, but is Power Rangers number 2, and I'm saying that mostly just because I'm waiting for more story to happen in that book, and we haven't gotten enough done in the 0 and the number 1, and in looking at the synopsis of it, I'm excited to see that if it's true that we're actually putting people's lives in danger in that book, especially Tommy's, and not making it just all about, oh, is he going to get to keep his powers? So yeah, I'm excited about that. Lo, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is and all of my recommends this week are number 1s, which is not going to be the normal thing. I just am in a spot right now where all of my books are either on hiatus or have just ended, so I'm like picking up a bunch of new books because I have the space for them. But this is number 1 of Rough Riders, and I'm very interested in this because one of the producers and writers for Supernatural, his name is Adam Glass, and I think he's done comics before, but I'm not really aware of what comics he's done. It's a new book for him, and he's describing it as the American League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, except with actual historical figures. So we've got, and it's steampunk. Just to throw a bunch of stuff at you. We've got, here's the list of characters: Theodore Roosevelt, Harry Houdini, Annie Oakley, Thomas Edison, and others. I'm very interested in it. I love the sort of sepia tone art that we have on the cover. And Adam Glass's episodes are always some of my favorite from Supernatural, so I'm excited to see his writing style in comics. And I really like steampunk. I know some people think that it's sort of like overdone and cliche at this point, but I personally really like it, so I'm really looking forward to it, and it sounds like it's going to be an interesting book.
Who's publishing that? Is that an Image book or?
Aftershock.
Oh wow! Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Logos for the obscure stuff. That's awesome.
Woo. I have no idea if it's obscure when I suggest it. I just look at stuff and I'm like, that looks cool. I'm going to read that.
That's such a great place to come from, though. You're not even looking at a publisher.
That one I know because I follow Adam Glass on Twitter, and he's been, really talking about it a lot, obviously, because it's coming out and it's his book. So I've been very excited for it.
Lo, my number one, without a doubt, is Wonder Woman Earth 1. Finally doing another one of these Earth 1 trade-sized one-and-dones. Well, not one-and-done, because we of course have continued on with Batman and Superman, but a graphic novel before it's a comic book. It's Grant Morrison and Yana Paquette, with the dream team from the beginning of Batman Incorporated. So cool that he got Yana Paquette on that book. That's a guy who takes forever because he's so meticulous and so ultra-detailed and researches every nook and cranny. I've talked to Yana Paquette at a convention once, and he's fascinating, and his process is neat. I haven't looked into what exactly the story of that book is because I don't want to know until I've read it. So I'm gonna talk about that this week, I'm sure, or next Monday. But the Earth 1 book so far I've been really happy with. Some people like one and not the other. I like both Batman and Superman, especially Superman. Now that we've got that 3-act trilogy thing, it was just brilliant by the end. But I've been liking what Jeff Johns did with Batman too, and it's really cool to have another writer of that caliber, JMS, and then Jeff Johns, who, Jeff Johns didn't miss for me, but I like that version of Batman for him. He's been known to not write Batman well, but I like that. Anyway, so that's exciting, and it'll be also interesting reading that because I'm not a big Wonder Woman guy, and I don't know as much about that character as I wish I did, so I don't know how much of it I'll appreciate, not being a big Wonder Woman person, but I'm going to get it because I love the Earth 1 books. So, anyway.
All right. So,
and
my
we'll
number one is... Oh, yeah.
Because it's Grant Morrison. Anyway, go ahead.
My number one, I was really surprised for a little bit that nobody had guessed it, but then I kind of poked them in the chat, and somebody did guess it. It is the Poe Dameron book that is coming out. Issue number 1 comes out this week. I'm very excited for it. Like I said, I've read the... Chewbacca and Princess Leia, and I really liked both. I haven't read any of the other Star Wars books, but from what I've heard, a lot of them are really good. People seem to enjoy them, so I'm excited to get a little bit of backstory on my favorite new character in the Star Wars universe. And yeah, and it looks like it's the same writer as a lot of the other Star Wars stuff, so I think it'll be kind of more of the same, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, who is writing the Poe Dameron book?
Charles Soule. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Yeah. Cool.
Soule. But yeah, so that's what I'm excited for because I love Poe Dameron. Me and my Poe Dameron headphones.
Well, we may have some more crossover next week. I'll be reading that too, so we'll see if it's good.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, there's a Walking Dead coming out next week and Spider-Man 2099, both of which are books that I really like. So who knows? They could overtake. With the number ones that are coming out, I felt like I had to definitely suggest those.
Yeah, and I'm way behind on 2099, so I might not even be caught up by then. I've got a stack. Anyway, well, that is all of our books from last week and this week. Let's go ahead and if anybody wants to ask us about books that we didn't talk about or mention any books that you'd like us to be reading, feel free to go ahead and write those in the comments right now. We'll be looking at them for just the next couple minutes. We've run later than we said we would, but this is a brand new format. It's hard to tell how long we want to talk about things and
we have like a 10-minute intro that next week we'll just be like, hey guys, we're back. All right, and number 3.
Yeah, precisely. Did it need to be that long? Probably not.
Whatever.
So yeah, well, Lo,
I'm not seeing a lot of comments as far as
not yet. I mean, it's not a giant crowd, but it is super cool.
How many people do we have?
About 30.
Oh, nice. I can't see on my end, so.
Which on a late night is, especially for something like this, is really good.
Yeah.
Guy Person. Oh, yes, Guy Person. I love Guy Person. Cap, thoughts on Doctor Strange? Are we talking about the set photos and movie Doctor Strange? Because that costume looks amazing, and I can't even believe that they went all the way. And I shouldn't be surprised because we've done that with so much of the Marvel movie stuff, but wow, they went all the way with it. As far as Doctor Strange himself, I haven't read a lot of Doctor Strange. He's not a character I know real well, but I know Dan is losing his mind.
I'm reading the current book, and it's good.
Are you?
But it's only a couple issues in, so I don't know much.
I liked the first issue a lot and just had to be choosy and didn't keep going with it. The art in that is magnificent.
Oh, yeah. I love, trippy, very colorful art. It always grabs me.
Magpie wants to know what trade he should get next. Of course, I'm not a big trade reader. There's a lot of stuff being recollected right now, though. The Cassandra Cain Batgirl just started being recollected, I think last month or the month before. I'm buying that in trade now. And I really like Cassandra Cain a lot. So if you haven't read any of that stuff, that's coming out now finally. We're seeing a lot of stuff recollected right now. Major runs on things, and like there's some, I guess Miller's Daredevil is finally being recollected again, because like whatever is popular right now in the media, then like the big runs of that start coming out, which is really cool. You're probably seeing a lot of
people like me who are needing to like get into stuff that's older.
Yeah, catch up on some of the classics.
Yeah.
What else?
Let's see here. What are your thoughts on Vader Down so far? Admiral asks Mass Sci-Fi fan.
I like Vader Down a lot. Well, Vader Down's over. I think I finished it, so I think that's done. Yeah, I liked it a lot. The Star Wars books, of course, are super action heavy. But the art in all of those is really good. I thought Vader Down was going to be like Vader Down gets written out for a while, or Vader gets written out for a while, and it wasn't that at all. And it was a very Vader centric story, which I enjoyed. But it's been a little while, and I don't remember it real well. Which take that with a grain of salt, because I'm reading and watching so much right now that it's not memorable. It's just I rushed it one day, and so anyway. Somebody wanted to know if you and I might do some vaults together, Lo. I think we should.
My vault is very tiny. It's currently 2 short boxes, but and nothing in it is more than like a year and a half old. So
as Dan and I used to do a lot of comic vaults together of books that we would talk about on the main show. And then you're basically doing the show that Dan and I used to do, except we're not reviewing everything, so it's not a 3-hour show like it used to be. But we would talk about single issues, and then we would do collected stuff when it was finished. And you and I should do some of that when we can, if we ever find the time for
cool.
stuff we're both reading. Like for instance, that first arc of Daredevil just ended. We could do that. Yeah. So that'd be good. Movie Geek 17. Did you read Teen Titans Earth 1? I forgot that one came out. No, I didn't, obviously. So should probably get my hands on that. I'm not a big Teen Titans guy. I didn't even think about it, but I should probably collect that whole line. So yeah. Somebody also mentioned the Transformers deviations. Was what if Optimus Prime didn't die in the Transformers movie? Yeah, and I finally watched that movie for the first time a couple weeks ago, and just couldn't even believe what I was looking at. That thing is amazing. So yeah, I probably should read that. But we've got an official request to do a commentary on that. So me and Eric and maybe somebody else. We'll probably be doing that. Well, Lo, I think we should probably call it a night.
All right. It's been fun. I like it. I'm excited to see where this goes.
Yeah. It's just Lo and I kind of sitting back talking comics. Thanks so much, everybody, for that's here live. Cool that we got a little bit of a crowd tonight. And if you're watching this after the fact, thanks a lot for that as well, of course. And we will be here again next Monday at 2 a.m. my time, I will do my level best to stay awake through the entire show.
Sorry.
It'll only be 11 for Lo.
I'm in the best time zone. Yeah.
And weather area too.
It is. I see people complaining about that it's like raining and super cold where they live. I'm like, oh, it's in the 70s right now. It's so cold. Look at me wearing a hoodie.
You got people here trying to stay safe from tornadoes under overpasses. It's ridiculous. Anyway, everybody, thanks so much for watching. We sure appreciate it. We'll see you again next week for week 2 of new comic book late night. Crazy comic book late nights back. It's a different show, but we got the title back, and it's exciting. I am Admiral Captain Logan,
and I'm the Curious Lo.
And thanks for watching. See you later.